I'll just be talking briefly about the Olympus TP-8 mic and using it with a phone and an audio recorder, and that's an earpiece pickup mic, which I came to using a bit accidentally really through my interviews with the NHS at 70 project, which I've been working with, and this is the system that they've switched to. And then because I've been familiar with using it, I've also used it for my own interviews for some research I'm doing into how parents of young children are experiencing lockdown and now the emergence from it. So I've now done about sort of 40 or 50 interviews using this. So I've played around with it, and it's been a bit of an evolutionary process. But I'm going to show just a few slides which show sort of how to use it, and then I'll come out of the slides for a wee bit and actually show how to use it using my recorder, and then I'll just go through a few general pointers and some pros and cons of using it, and then at the end I'll play a wee clip of how it sounds and what the volume sounds like. So hopefully that sounds okay. So just briefly, these pictures come from the NHS at 70, how to guide how to use it, which I received as an interviewer for that. So they show a Zoom H4n, which is what I've been using for my interviews, but other audio recorders work in this way as well. And the first image shows the place in the back of the recorder where the mic plugs into, and you can see that plugged in the right hand picture. One of the main things to remember to do, and something that I forgot to do quite a lot at the start when I started using this, was to enable the external plug-in, because the sound doesn't work. If that doesn't happen, it doesn't record any sound. So these slides just go through how to do that and how to enable that using the menu button on the right hand side, scrolling down to input, and then selecting plug-in power, and turning that on, and that can obviously be turned off again if you don't want to use the mic anymore. And then return to the usual screen, and once you press your record button, you should see your volume bars going up and down as normal once that plug-in is enabled. At that point, place rather than plus your Olympus TP-8 onto your ear on top of the mic. Hold the phone over your ear and over the earpiece mic, keeping the speaker on top of the phone unobstructed, and press record once you've phoned your interviewee, and away you go. So all your interviewee has to do at the other end is to pick up their phone and answer the phone call. That's not very professionally taken picture of me using it just with the phone over my ear. I actually usually have it a wee bit closer onto my ear than that, but I kept it slightly off so you could actually see the mic in place. So the slot on the back of the Zoom is just there where it says external mic, and the mic plugs in like that. The earpiece mic is quite tiny, just looks like this. So then I pop the recorder down, pop my earpiece into my ear like this, and then would phone my interviewee, pop the phone on top of my ear, press record, and that's me once I've enabled my plugin, and then stop record as normal. So I found it quite straightforward, because I think I definitely don't count myself as a massive technological expert, so I was quite surprised by how straightforward I found it to use, and I didn't really actually believe that it would work like that, so I was pleasantly surprised. I'll just pop the slides back up just now. Okay, so just a few general tips on using it just now. First of all, the recording levels need to be quite a bit lower than if you're using the built-in microphones on the Zoom, as the Olympus TP-8 is a lot more sensitive. So just when testing that out, bring that volume down a wee bit. I usually phone up the interviewee 5 or so minutes before I plan to actually start the interview, and then I can just test the volume, have the volume on the test setting, bring it down to what I would like to have, and I can also assess then what their phone signal is like, and if their phone is cutting in and out a bit, then I can switch to the landline. The TP-8 is also very sensitive to movement, so it detects things like rustling and squeaky desk chairs quite a lot. So I do try and keep relatively still when speaking on it, and I also keep my hair tied back in case that rustles on top of the mic. That's perhaps the keeping still part is perhaps one of the reasons why I've found that the interviews over the phone tend to be shorter than face-to-face ones. The average kind of length of interview I've been doing on these is probably about sort of 45 minutes, somewhere between half an hour and an hour. I think the longest one I've done has been about an hour and a half. Now, which is still quite a bit shorter than the longest one that I might do in a face-to-face setting. I think that's for a variety of reasons. The people I've been interviewing have quite often been quite busy through lockdown with small children running around, so haven't got an awful lot of time to speak. But I think also the nature of the phone interviewing is a bit more tiring. Holding it up to your ear is a bit more tiring over a long period of time. I've experimented a bit with using speakerphone, but I found that the quality isn't as good that way. So the sound quality is better if it's held to the ear, but that's obviously a bit more tiring for people who are actually doing the interview, and for you as the interviewer. Using a landline does work in the same way. I found that calling somebody's landline, the quality sounds a bit more phone-like. It isn't quite as good as you would have on a mobile. So my preference is to use a mobile and to call a mobile rather than to call a landline unless the signal isn't good enough, and then I would revert to the landline as that's a bit better than having the phone cut out and missing lots of patches. A few pros and cons to using it. I think one of the things that I like the most about it is how straightforward I've found it to use. I'm not the biggest technological wizard out there, and I found it quite straightforward for me to use. But I think particularly for the interviewee, that all they have to do at the other end is to pick up their phone. They don't have to download anything. They don't have to worry about clicking on any links or worry about security issues. They literally just have to answer the phone. So it's very straightforward for them. It records through the audio, through your normal audio recorder, and you have a WAV file at the end of it. The interviewee's voice is condensed because it comes down the phone line, so that the sound quality of it isn't as good as you might find in a standard WAV file, but you do have that file at the end. Security-wise, because the recording is going into your recorder, it's not being recorded on the phone, there aren't any more security considerations than you would have for a normal phone call, so there's no issues to do with companies laying claim on data or anything like that. And it's quite reasonably priced to get hold of one. They're usually available between about £20 and £23 online, so quite straightforward to get hold of. Disadvantages include that the microphone isn't the best quality out there, and to get one that is, it would involve paying an awful lot more money, and you can't use any other kind of external microphone with it, which means that there's not a lot you can do about that without buying a completely different setup. The interviewer and the interviewee obviously can't see each other's body language, so you lose that aspect of a face-to-face interview, and I have therefore found that I find myself saying more through interviewing this way than I would face to face, where I could use my body language and be nodding and smiling and whatever. But I find that I'm adding in more mm-hms and ahas just to show that I'm there and I haven't wandered off to have a cup of tea at the same time. So I think that's something that is different, although I actually have had some interviewees said that because they can't see me and because they're speaking over the phone, they said they found themselves saying more personal things to me than they might feel able to if they were doing it face to face, which is an interesting comment which has come up more than once in some of the interviews that I've done. It does only record a mono file rather than a stereo one, and one of the problems with that is it's difficult to balance the levels of the two speakers, and you'll hear in a bit when I play the clip that my voice, the interviewer's voice, is much quieter than that of the interviewee, and I have played around with that a bit, and I found that the best result that I get with that is when the volume on my mobile phone is turned up to about 3/4 volume, and I found that brings my level as close as I've been able to get it so far. It's still perfectly audible, and you can hear both voices. It's just that there is an imbalance between the two. And the quality of the recording, as I've mentioned already, is also affected by phone signal. Sometimes I've had people who are sort of walking around the house while they're doing it, and the phone signal's been a bit dodgy or sometimes cut out, and I've had to pause the recording and call people back. Not very often, because I do usually experiment with that at the beginning, and providing that they don't start jogging circles around the house randomly in the middle. It's usually something I'm able to tell from the first 5 minutes of talking to them, but that can occasionally be a problem. And I'm just going to play a short clip of just about 1.5 minutes long, which is one of my interviewees. I've been a father who I've spoken to about his experiences of lockdown and home educating in lockdown, and there's a section of him talking, and then you hear my question, and then you hear him talking afterwards, so it should let you hear that difference in volume between the two. So I'll just share that.
Vision, but there was all it had to be arranged very last minute because life was changing on a day-to-day basis, and there was a lot of days we weren't sure whether there would be a hub and what the council's interpretation of the government's guidance would be. So we had to become comfortable not knowing our plans miles in advance. We had to be comfortable being reactive to the situation, and I think that's not really the type of person I am, but I've probably become a wee bit more comfortable with last minute changes and things like that. So I suppose just to summarise, I was completely comfortable. The schools were stopping. I realised how serious the situation had become, and it was about preventing deaths, and I could understand that, and just a bit of concern about my work situation, but it's all turned out okay for me, thankfully.
Mm-hmm. And what was that first 2 weeks like when you were self-isolating and you were sort of restricted to the house? What was that period like?
Yeah, not probably a lot of things to say about that. Not so easy to pin down to one feeling. I definitely remember feeling guilt to my workplace because I didn't know that my kids definitely had a positive to COVID-19. They both had raised temperatures, and we were 100% following guidance, but it wasn't the culture of getting a test really easily, so they weren't tested or put forward for testing. I wasn't tested because I wasn't the one.
Okay, so yeah, just a wee bit of a clip to give you an idea of what the recording sounds like. So the sound, is to my untrained ear a reasonable level without being as good as it would be on a face-to-face basis, and you can hear the difference when I speak and when I ask the question. Yeah, so that's a brief summary. That's my experience of using it thus far. I feel like I'm still learning things with it at the moment, but that is how I've found it to this point.